Welcome to color mixing and saving paint, teaching or inspiration, part 1. Here I have a simple piece of wood, long, thin, with a little handle on it, you can see there. And I have a PVC pipe, water pipe, whatever. This one's well used, that's why it's so full of paint, but you can use that. And to save your paint is wet. I keep it stored on here. I slide it into this tube, simply like that, and I store that in the deep freeze. None of the food gets on here now because the pipe protects everything else. And in the deep freeze, this paint, I sometimes leave paint in the deep freeze for up to a month, and it's absolutely wet still. It stays wet. It's oil paint. Remember, this is not acrylic. So the oil paint stays wet and with no skin whatsoever forming for however long. You can save your paint for as long as you want. I also have a second tray here, which has also got its own pipe sleeve. And this is from the day where I've now finished painting, and I like to save some of these very interesting colors that I had as piles in working with a previous painting that I was working with, and I saved them so that the next day I can simply pick up again on the same colors and carry on with my painting. So I do have a second one of these, which is that I save now for the second day from work and paint that I've mixed. But I want to show you how to get to these interesting colors, these earth tones, because that's what the reality, when you're trying to mix realism and nature and everything around us, actually looks like. There's a lot of these earth grays, a lot of these very beautiful greens. And you don't get these out of tubes. You don't just buy them. You can buy some of them. But I want to show you how you don't have to buy too many colors. That you just have to buy red, yellow, blue, brown. That's all you're going to get. So red, yellow, blue, brown, and a tube of white. So that's like 5 colors. And if you know paint, if you know how it works, then you never have to buy that again. You never have to buy expensive skin tones, earth tones, all these strange colors that they sell on the shelf, because at the end of the day, the guy at the factory that makes this paint, he's just taking red, yellow, blue, or brown, or white, and he's giving you all those colors in those other tubes. Some of them you can't mix. Yes, you could probably buy them. Yes. And another thing is, if you want to keep your palette knife clean, not mudding your colors, I use this toilet roll setup here with my brushes, and I just simply roll and wipe, tear it off, throw it away. But it keeps my colors fresh on my palette, so there's no need to get paint on your hands or on your clothes. Okay, that's another good tip. So here I am with the Lism and Chrism, because I find that's the darkest, richest, purest red pigment, I would think, other than the cadmium red, which is the warmer one. Let me just go and find it quickly, and I'll put that next to it. I'll make the cadmium, so it's fine. But this is the cooler of the red, but it's red. Red is warm. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt in my head that red is warm. Okay? Then we have yellow, which I'll place this side on the color wheel. I'll take a nice amount of it. Don't be shy when it comes to paint. Be generous. Paint like you have all the paint in the world. Cleaning up. If I had to now mix the red with some yellow, I'd get that cadmium, the warm cadmium, even orange, which is what you tend to look for in paint. So there's your secondary color. You don't have to buy it. There it is. And you can get an even warmer cadmium red here, which I'll show you. Very nice rich red, which is now lighter than the alizarin crimson. I'll make big circles. Okay, then on the upper side of the color wheel you have green, but now let's first put the blue, because that's still in the primary area of things. Yeah, so we'll put the blue here. Right. And then we have violet. So if you add blue to red, the alizarin crimson, you get a lovely violet. Purple violet. If you can't see it, I can always add a little bit of white to it. And you'll see it. There. Okay, that's violet. And then from violet, which would be the opposite of yellow, which we'll get to just now, we also need red. We need green. Green. So green comes from yellow mixed with the neighboring color next to it, which would be green. Can you see that lovely green that you get there? Makes sense. So it's now you've got secondary colors. These are called secondary colors because they come from the primary colors. Primary colors are red, yellow, blue. Primary colors are orange, green, and violet. I mean, secondary colors. Secondary colors are violet, orange, and green. Those are your secondary colors. And from that you can then make a lighter green by adding the neighboring color to it. So you can increase the value of the green by just adding neighboring colors. You can darken the green by adding more blue to this green, and it becomes a darker green to the point that it becomes a light blue. So yeah, it goes like that in this color wheel. So that's the basics of your color wheel. I mean, I can even get a lighter orange here, if you look at that. It's taking a little bit of warm there. Now it's a more cadmium, it's a richer cadmium yellow. That's why I like to use the lemon yellow as my primary color. And I like to use alizarin crimson as my primary red. And I like to use French ultramarine or Prussian blue as my primary blue, because those to me are the purest primary colors you can get. Right. Then I like to add the brown, which is burnt umber or burnt sienna. Burnt umber is a cooler brown, and burnt sienna is a warmer brown, basically a dark yellow. That's how I like to think of it as. And I put it here in the brown area because these are all browns. The way I think of them is browns. So I put the brown by the browns. And if I want a lighter brown, well, the cadmium red is a lighter brown. The dark orange is a lighter brown until you get to a light yellow, which is also a light brown to me. Yellow is a light brown. Burnt umber is a dark yellow to me. Burnt sienna is a dark yellow to me. If you ever paint a banana, you will find that out, because the shadows in the banana tend to go warm depending on your light. Okay, so that's your brown. If you're not sure that there's brown, I'll show you. Just add a little bit of white to it, and there you will have a brown. You will see that it's brown. I like to add very small amounts because this is artist quality paint, so it's very strong in pigment and it takes a bit of getting used to. Right. Just gonna pause there. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna just fix my fire here, so it's chilly. Yeah, it's winter. I have to put a little fireplace next to my workplace here, so I get to stay warm. Anyway, so now, that's for the sake of the demonstration. I've got this color wheel which you can get at any art shop or Dulux paint place. But even the places at the hardware stores, at the Dulux company, they have worked this system out. They've mastered it. It's not even art, it's science. It's science, basically what paint does as you mix them together. So we haven't even touched on art. You make art out of the science. So that's what I'm trying to show you. It's just the pure science of understanding paint. If you can understand paint, you can mix any color you see in real life, in the world. You can. I've been doing it for years. It's basically what keeps me able to continuously buying paint. I also use black. I add black to this because black is, at the end of the day, it's the darkest dark you can get, and it's the balance. It has a tendency to be cooler, but black, I keep it away from all the other colors because it can influence colors tremendously. And then I will go up to white, purest white, and then I will work a color value range here for you, which is gray, goes lighter and lighter till you get to, so this is your color value that I'm doing here for you, which is, if you mix black with white in different quantities, you're going to get values of gray till you get to pure black. Can you see that? I've demonstrated it. I haven't done it quite clearly here. Let me just show you the camera. I'll do it for you. There. And now you can see. So I mixed these colors quickly for you. Sorry about that. I wasn't looking at the camera. So I'll mix these values for you by simply adding different amounts of black. There's your black. You can even then make intermediate values in between. Watch this. Just by adding more and more white, you can gauge with your eye all these beautiful steps. And that's what painting is all about, you know. Painting is just a two-dimensional surface with the illusion of depth. Depth is created by temperature, whether it be cool or warm, and dark and light. So I don't want to complicate it too much, because just for the demonstration of this, I want to just make it clear that there are your values. Values are from darkest dark, going up to grays, into whitest white. There you go. That makes sense? So that's a value chart. Value is dark to light, similar to notes on the piano. The low notes and the high notes and the intermediate notes, these are the trebles and these are the basses. You know, if you think of a piano, those are your values. So if people are talking to you about value, you must just think dark light. Right? Now the same occurs in color, temperature, it's all there. And if you practice the system and you become very fluid at working the system of color mixing, you will be able to become a greater painter. And then as a result, a better artist, because then you could express yourself in the message of what you're trying to portray in art more easily using the medium of the science of paint. This is science. Anyone can learn how to mix color. You don't have to be gifted to mix color. You just have to learn how to mix color. Okay, so in nature you get colors that are nothing like the tubes of paint that you buy on the shelf. And if you look at a painting, when people are trying to paint realism, an amateur would tend to stick more to the outer rim, the colors that you get out the tube in his painting, then he would then go and mix earth tones more closer to realism. That gives you the feeling of a more professional painting. I'm talking about realism here now. So, I mean, abstraction is another league you can't compare. Anyway, so here we are. So we want to paint with the colors that we're going to make here more than we paint with these. And I want to show you something. If you want to cancel colors out, you take colors from the opposite of the color wheel. Opposite. The opposite of red is green. The opposite of yellow is violet. The opposite of blue would be orange. And remember that. I say that to myself. When I'm bathing at night, I'm like saying, what is the opposite of yellow? And then I'll answer. I had to learn in my mind how all these things work. And you get a mid-tone in the middle here of violet and yellow that cancel each other out. But it's a beautiful earth tone. It's a beautiful tone. It's got a tendency to be slightly green because of the blue. But if it, like I said, if it's a pure violet, it won't go green. It will be very neutral. A neutral, warm grey. You can even make it cool if you add. So as you go closer now to yellow, in the same way I did that value scale there, it will tend to warm up and lighten, because yellow lightens the color. As I have black in the one corner, I have white in the other corner. I'm going to bring a bit more white into this corner because I'm going to use it just now. But I sometimes put the yellow next to the blue because the white next to the blue, because to me they are both cool. Because blue has a tendency to be cool, so does white. Brown has a tendency to definitely be warm, and black has a tendency to be neutral and cool. That's why in the Zorn palette, which you can look up, you only used black. But when you put it next to the warm colors, it had a tendency to appear cool. So can you see this little color range that I've got here? A value range that goes from yellow to almost dirtying it, because I'm using violet. And if I add more violet, because remember I just add blue and red together and I make violet. As I add more violet to the yellow pile, it becomes cooler to the place where it's a off violet, dark. It's a beautiful color, but it's not as high in chroma. It's not as high as in intensity as these outer ring of colors. So I'm going to get some. So what I'm trying to show you is there's an outer ring of colors here, which are the primary and secondary colors. Then you get tertiary colors, which they live here in this center area. And they are the colors that you tend to use the most. but those are the colors that you want to make. So by mixing the opposite complementary colors, the complementary color is the opposite. So violet complements yellow. Red complements green. And blue complements orange. So you would decide, maybe I want to paint a painting that's just blue and orange, and work with this range. And as you shift from there, sorry, that's green. Yeah, green to red. As you shift from green to red, or vice versa, you will have this constant pulling of the red, more red, cooling down into the green. And if you want to warm up the red, which is often found in nature, you want to use red. And it will reduce its chroma. Chroma is a word, let me give you another word, intensity. The intensity is reduced when you add the opposite on the color wheel. So there, those opposite orange added to blue will give you the opposite, and it will reduce its intensity. Let me mix you another one here. So I'm going to make a space here in the middle. This is just for demonstration. I don't work this neatly ever. It's good to have an organized palette though. So I'm taking from my pile, got my red here, and I want to cool down my red, or want to reduce the intensity. So I'm not mixing these colors now, I'm mixing these colors. So I go there, and I take some red, I mean some green, and I add green to it, and it cancels out. And I've definitely cooled down the red. I've made it come towards the blue spectrum. Remember, this is the cool area from about here. It's cool, going all the way to about violet. Then it starts to warm up, and this is the warm area. So this is the warm, and this is the cool. Okay, right here. Cool, warm. And that's what you want to think about when you're painting is this warm? Is this cool? Is this light or is this dark? So this is dark, and this is light. And when you want to create the effect of light in a painting, you just want to add white. You just want to lighten or increase the temperature, which is warm. Warm it up, and you will create the effect of light next to the cool. And a good balance of cool and warm in different ratios make a good painting. It's a recipe for a good painting, great painting. So there's your concept. I don't think I need to teach you more than that right now. If I want to add orange to the blue, remember, opposites. Create a lovely brown umber, burnt sienna. So I'm going this way, blue to orange. So think about this video. If it doesn't make sense, watch it again, because I do believe it makes sense. It takes time for your mind to actually see color like this and value, because the hue is yellow, but you want to reduce its intensity, so you use violet. The red is red, hue is red, but you want to reduce its intensity or its temperature, so you use the opposite, which be green. And the same with the blue, using the orange to reduce the blue, and you would warm up the blue. If you want to do it the other way around, you want to reduce the intensity of orange, you go and use the blue. Then you want to lighten color, because now these colors are dark. So let's say the color is now too dark. It's down here in the value range of too dark. but you want to lighten it, then you would use white, or you would use yellow. So the two colors that you use to lighten a color is white and yellow. We're not changing the temperature now. We are just lightening the value. But if you want to warm up a color and lighten it, you will use yellow, a little bit of white, or both, or just one or the other. But they will both lighten a color. If you want to darken a color, you will use black, or you'll use burnt umber, brown, or just the opposite in the value system here, in the color system, which also reduces intensity of value, right down to where the blue tends to darken a color too. You can also use red, especially this alizarin crimson. It will darken a color. But for the sake of this purpose, I use brown and black to darken, white and yellow to lighten, one or the other, or both, depending on the temperature color shift that you want to achieve. So like if I want to lighten this color that you can't hardly see, that looks so dark, and remember that was the yellow and the violet friends. You see, if I add a little bit of white to it, you can definitely see that it's violet, but it's not as intense. You see? So it's slightly warmer. And I've lightened it. I've brought the value up, value range higher up. And yeah, if you want to try and practice this system, you'll understand what I'm saying more and more. But it's a warm violet. It's a lovely color that you want to use in a painting. And if it's not warm enough, then what do? I add some yellow. Remember I said you lighten a color by adding yellow also. And you will also then warm it up. If it's not warm, if it's too warm, just add some white. And it will cool it down. Did you see that? It's cool. It will cool it down. But it will also raise the value too high maybe. So then what happens? Oh, well then you just add more pigment. You add more violet, more yellow, and it'll bring it down slightly. Back to your rules. You've just brought it down again. It's interesting. Huh? So you need to play like a child. Let's not get into painting just yet. Let's play with the system. Play and play and play until your mind formulates the language of paint. And once you can speak in this language, well, I hope that you will become a great artist, because I can't teach you to be an artist. I can only teach the language of how paint works, the science of paint. Okay. The moment I add brown to any color, it will darken it. It will also warm it up. And if it's too warm, I just go back to violet, add some more violet or add some more blue. Because remember, the opposite of brown is blue too, because brown is warm and blue is cool. So never forget, to me the biggest principle that I walk away with is when I walk in the street and I'm painting in my mind. I'm just asking myself, is it warm? Is it cool? What hue are you? Which color are you? Are you intense or are you not that intense? Are you grey or are you warm grey or are you cool grey? You see, so all you need to ask yourself is, are you warm or are you cool? And if a color is too yellow, let's say, what color are you? And you've mixed this color, but you want to get to that color that you're after. And the color is too yellow. Let's say it's too yellow. Too yellow. Then what do? Well, you add violet, opposite. And you will reduce the yellow. Because if you're too yellow, then you need violet. If you're too red, then you need green to reduce the green. To reduce the red. If you're too green, what do? You add red. Because you want to reduce the red. Sorry, I'm keep on saying the wrong thing here. If you are too red, I'll repeat myself. If you are too red in color, then you want to reduce the red by adding green. So you reduce the red. If your color is too blue, then you want to reduce the blue by adding orange. And the same goes the other way. If it's too orange, it's too warm, well, cool it down. Add some blue. If it has a tendency to want to go green because of the blue, well, if it's too green, then you add red, you see. So think about it, practice it, and let me know how you do with this exercise.